Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm one of your co-hosts, Rico Borrego.
And I am your other co-host, Tony Borrego.
And this is the podcast known as Relatively Sound, the podcast where it's been a while. And it has been a while. We have missed an episode last month. The only time so far in the history of this podcast where we went a week or even more than a week without posting. And it's because we've been very busy. Last month, I went up and saw Tony and our family. And then we took a little trip to Oregon and saw a lot of family members we haven't seen in a while. Shout out to our cousin, Christine, who says that she listens to this podcast. So if you're listening to this episode, shout out to you. Thank you for being one of our 3 monthly listeners. And we've done a lot, though, in between. Tony and I went while I was in Seattle, and we went and saw Ben Folds live. And then Tony and I each had our own experiences at different shows for the Swell season in their current tour, which has just now ended. And that's what we're going to be talking about today on this episode. We're going to be talking about our experiences at these 2 concerts, well, 3 technically. And yeah, we haven't really talked much about concerts. Tony actually he just had a concert last night, right? You had a gig.
Yes. We performed at Sunset Tavern, and I've been meaning to go see more live shows, because I haven't been to as many as I should and want to. And if I'm playing gigs, I better be, watching gigs too. So seeing Ben Folds coming to town, someone I really like, seeing Swell season, someone I was familiar with but really like. So doesn't get much better.
Yeah, and we'll hop just right into it here. We saw Ben Folds actually in the last night of his tour, this leg of the tour. We saw him at the Paramount Theater in Seattle. And for you, Tony, it was your first time seeing him, right? I've seen him once before just by himself solo, but you've never seen him at all live.
No, I have not. And we also brought Bryce and Connor. Bryce we just had on the podcast not long ago. And Connor is also a fellow friend and bandmate. And he did not know who Ben Folds was, but he seemed to have had a good time too.
Correction, he did know Ben Folds contribute to the Over the Hedge soundtrack.
His most important work, clearly.
Yeah, but we had really good seats. I upgraded our tickets, and we were like 6 rows back from the front stage, off to the left side, so kind of behind Ben, because if you're on the stage, technically he's over all the way to like the right. But yeah, so we got a little late to the show. We missed a couple songs from the opener. But the opener is this duo named Tall Heights. And when I saw Ben Folds live, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, probably like 4 years ago, before COVID, he also had Tall Heights open for him. And then like near the end of his set, they came out and played with Ben, because Tall Heights is a duo. You have Tim Harrington, who plays acoustic guitar and sings, and then you have Paul Wright, who sings and plays the cello, which is a very interesting kind of dynamic there. So they did a set of their original songs, and they also did a Blink-182 cover, which was interesting.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's actually the first. We walked in like a song or two late, and that's the one that we walked in on, and I turned to you, and I was like, I think this is a Blink-182 song. But they played it in such a different arrangement with acoustic guitar and cello. They made it like really pretty. And
for me, not knowing them, walking out and seeing them playing a Blink-182 cover, I didn't really know what to expect for the remainder of their set.
Yeah, because they're online. They go under the genre electro folk, and that's because like they do have a cello and acoustic guitar, but then I think on their studio albums, there are like maybe electronic drums and stuff like that. But they're from Boston. And like I said, I know a couple of their songs that I remember from the tour I saw with Ben. And So they opened on this tour as well, and it makes sense because they helped Ben write and actually perform on the last song on Ben's last studio album, What Matters Most, which Tony and I talked about a couple months ago. And so I really liked them as an opener, but like I said, I kind of already knew what to expect. What did you think of them, Tony?
I thought they were fantastic, very technically talented, and they put on a good show as performers as well. It was cool to. It was really cool because it felt really intimate, and they managed to make themselves sound huge for just being two vocals, cello, and acoustic. The cellist, is that what you call him?
Yeah,
Celloist,
cellist. No, cellist.
cellist. He was like using like a delay pedal or something to like hold out some notes, to kind of make like a soundscape, and it was really cool to see. They just seemed so rehearsed, very talented. I can't emphasize that enough. I was blown away. And it was cool because the last song of the set, they actually stepped away from the mics and performed it busk styles. Is that how you call it, Rico?
Yeah, they pulled a Glenn Hansard, which we'll be talking about here in a little bit. But yeah, no microphones, just playing to the crowd.
And so, how did this performance compare to the other one that you saw them open for?
Very similar. I kind of think they did a song too where they busked at the first show I saw them at, but similar. I mean, they told us throughout the show that they were trying out some new songs that they were working on, I think, for an upcoming album. So some of them I obviously had never heard before, but yeah, I mean, they're very solid. And at the worst, it's just very pretty music, you know? So that as an opening act, they're great because they don't overstep their, boundaries when it comes to like trying to over impress as an opening band. But they leave you wanting more in a good way. Like you're like, okay, I'm gonna go listen to more of them. So
I think that's a good way to put it. Like they felt like they brought it all, but they didn't seem like they were trying. It felt organic. It didn't seem like they were trying to flex or,
yeah,
which I think is hard because in my opinion, as much as I love like Ben Folds 5 in particular, but I don't know, Ben Folds kind of seems like a pretentious artist to me. If maybe that's not the best way to put it, but
yeah, and this band too, if someone just heard their music, they could maybe think that, but um, I think it was a lot better than, yeah, I wouldn't call them pretentious for sure. Like, and I I think I sent you a screenshot, Tony. If not, this is maybe your first time learning this. I posted a picture of them on my Instagram story. And the next morning when I woke up, they actually responded. Like they because when you tag someone in like an Instagram story, it sends it to them like in a message, as long as you're not private. And
oh, I didn't realize that.
and they responded like, "Oh, thank you for such a lovely evening." And I think they do that to anyone that tags them in their story, but and it's because they're a small duo with not like a big following, like less than Ben Folds solo work. But it's cool when like they opening smaller band response to you online. It's pretty cool. Like they care about their audience.
Right, right. Or they're at least probably paying someone to do that, so employment.
Yeah. So they were a good opening act, and then um, you know, we get to Ben, and this tour he has actually a full band. He has obviously him on the piano and vocals. You have you actually have Tall Heights. They actually played his whole set with the rest of Ben's band. So you had you had pretty much acoustic guitar in almost every song and cello. And then you had a couple other members. You had um, Derek Wong on bass, Paul Dumas on drums, and then Ross Guerin on harmonica and keyboards. Apologies if I pronounced any of those names incorrectly. So you had you had what, 6 people on stage? Like that's a decent
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
decent, amount for like Ben, because it's other than Ben Folds 5, it's usually just him by himself, or it's him with like an orchestra, which is like twice the amount of people. So to him have this kind of like band, he hasn't done this since the Way to Normal tour, which was the album he released like in what, 2008 or something. So it's been a while. Um and off the
They were
bat,
set up on stage pretty cool too.
yeah, because they had like
A
the
little
the guys
riser in
from
the
Tall
back.
Heights, yeah, on the riser, kind of. So they were kind of more, they were taller up than Ben. I think the drummer too, was he on the riser as well?
I think so. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, because the
But then the
bassist
bass
was like,
player was just on the ground, like with Ben.
yeah, with the
Yeah,
harmonicaist.
I don't know if that's the right word you're looking for, but yeah, they were set up cool, and
And wasn't there? I know you had mentioned that it was the last show of their tour. Didn't they also say something about like Derek not? Weren't they like leaving the band or something at that point? I feel like they
well, I
made a
don't know.
little
It's
announcement like
weird
that.
because yeah, it was definitely the last show on this leg of the tour. But I was just looking recently at what the rest of his tour looks like, and it kind of looks like it's a solo tour, like for the rest of it.
Oh,
And because
okay.
I don't, so it's kind of weird that he said, "Oh, it was Derek's last night in the band," because it kind of seems like that was the last show for all the band members. But I could be wrong. They might be playing more shows with Tall Heights and with the other guys, and if that's the case, then they're going to have another bass player. Um, but yeah, it was definitely like kind of the last show of the tour. So they seemed in good spirits, which is always good. Um, and I thought they sounded great. Kind of doing a quick summary of the whole show. I mean, set list wise, we kind of went into it knowing exactly what they were going to play. Most of the songs from the new album, and then songs from his solo albums. No Ben Folds 5 songs, which I know probably disappointed you a little bit and Bryce, but
But
um,
expected.
we
We had
yeah,
mentioned.
we looked at the
Or you
set
had
list
mentioned
for
them.
the other shows, so we knew. But I mean, every song off the new album sounded great and even better live. For me, like Fragile was a lot better live. Clouds with Ellipses was better live.
Oh, the only one that wasn't better live, and I will defend it, was Exhausting Lover, the lead one of the big singles there. But you could clearly tell though it was because they didn't have the mix dialed in yet, which is expected. But for a song like that,
yeah,
you've
it was a
all
show
got to be
opener.
tight.
Yeah, it was a show opener. So the first song on a set definitely can be a little kind of dicey with the sound mixing for sure. Um, but it's funny because like that song's grown on you over time, and for me, it's still kind of the same. Like I don't hate it, but it's like probably my least favorite on the album. And at least they started the show with it, so like I didn't have to worry about it
Get
later
it
on
out
in
of
the
the way
set.
with.
Yeah,
You're
but
awful.
no, like that was followed up with Winslow Gardens, which is probably my favorite on the album. That sounded fantastic live. Even though there was no electric guitar, which I was a little disappointed at, the acoustic still sounded nice. Having the bass, and
Oh,
the
by
other
the way, I'm
extra
sorry. This is really
percussion.
important. Um, my favorite part of Tall Heights was the fact that they looked like Smosh from an alternate reality. That was
Yeah,
my favorite part.
they did. I think one of us made that joke during the show, but
Yeah, I
yeah,
couldn't help it.
yeah, no, yeah, they do.
Okay, sorry. Please continue. That was very important.
But no, like, yeah, all the songs from the new album sounded great live. I know you mentioned because he talked, it was a very nice mix of him talking in between songs. Some songs he didn't, he would just play straight into the next one, and then others he would tell like stories. And when
What?
he was telling the background to the song Christine from the seventh grade, that got a lot of laughs from people. Even during the song, as he was playing it and singing the lyrics, people were like laughing, like it was like like he was doing stand up comedy.
Well, I will say that what I did like about his chatter and stuff is that he talked in a way that appealed to fans that don't play music and the fans that did play music. What I didn't realize is that a lot of the songs, or at least he made it seem like a lot of the songs on the album were written as exercises. He talked about writing for or like teaching songwriting.
Yeah, because he
And
has a
so
Patreon page where one of the perks is he like will do songwriting lessons with people who pay for it.
So I remember Fragile and Christine from the 7th grade were the two that he did like the writing for. Fragile being about like some robber that chickened out and felt bad after, and I can't remember the story for Christine though. The quite the origin right there.
Well, that was just real life, like someone that he
Oh,
knew from grade school, like
I
you
thought he said
know.
it was a. Huh? Maybe it wasn't a story.
Well, I mean, I think
Well,
I
of
think
course
it's
it's a story, but I meant maybe it wasn't like
yeah,
an exercise.
but yeah, like there's a lot of like funny, moments throughout the songs, like in between the songs that he told stories or dedicated songs to people. Like he dedicated the title track of his latest album to Bob Saget, who was his friend, who sadly passed away a couple of years ago now. Um, so like
Oh wait, wait, was that the
those are great
person
moments.
that he was talking about passing away?
Yeah, I think we talked about this
Yeah,
on our
you tell
episode
me
when we
this,
reviewed
but
the
I didn't.
album.
I didn't put two and two together.
Yeah, he wrote that song "What Matters Most" about Bob Saget because they were close friends, and he passed away a couple years ago. And the story was he's like Ben was at like a storage unit going through like boxes of like memories, and he like sees something funny, and he goes to like send a message on his phone to his friend Bob, and then he realizes like, oh, he's no longer with us. He's passed away. So and I knew that going into the album already because I read it online, but hearing him tell that story in person is even more sentimental than just reading about it.
Yeah.
Uh,
Um.
but then there was great moments too, like deep cuts. Like when I saw him, he did kind of songs throughout like any albums he's ever done, but like this one was more focused on like the new album and then Rock in the Suburbs, which we had just released that episode a couple weeks ago where we talked about that album. So hearing a song like Losing Lisa, I loved it. It was one of my favorite deep cuts from Rock in the Suburbs, and hearing that live was fantastic with the band.
The one for me that I gained more appreciation for was "Ascent of Stan," which is a song that I liked, but like it wasn't all the way there for me. So it was cool to to gain a new appreciation for it. And I was really happy too that I got to see Ben on tour for What Matters Most because I really do love this album. Definitely my favorite from Ben. I'm not super familiar with all his work, but it was really nice to be a part of that.
Yeah, because Moments, the last song on that album, closed the main set of our show, and that was beautifully done, especially with Tall Heights actually being there to provide their vocals, acoustic guitar, the cello, and then like there were some songs that I know you don't know as well, um, or ones I know you don't like regularly listen to, like the two songs from Way to Normal, You Don't Know Me and Effington.
I like
Those
You Don't Know Me. I
those were
listen to that one a
fun,
lot.
really live, and people were singing along. Seattle was like on point when it came to singing the harmonies or the backing vocals, and especially on a song like Not the Same from Rock in the Suburbs we talked about last episode. Like the crowd knew exactly how to do the kind of three-part harmonies near the end of the song. So that was cool to be a part of that moment.
Yeah, yeah. I wasn't aware he had such a. Well, I mean, obviously he has a lot of fans, a following, but I guess I didn't really expect it because I haven't really seen too many bands that have like the same level of engagement that's expected at every show. It's one thing to talk to a crowd, but to get the crowd to
Expect
sing
them.
with you,
Expect
yeah,
them to sing and know the parts. Yeah.
know when to clap.
Yeah, because it's like, yeah, because during the encore, he comes out just by himself and he's doing Annie Waits. And the song starts with a little piano riff and then these claps, and the crowd knew exactly when to do it. And then something funny happened during the end of Annie Waits. You remember what happened
Um, please jog my memory
with Tall
here.
Heights?
Oh,
You know,
oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, they came rolling in on top of like some equipment or something, just casually in the back. Um, yeah, they had there was some real good chemistry from these guys.
yeah. And then the last probably really big thing to mention was um it's kind of a gimmick now at Ben Folds shows, but a long time ago, to make a long story short, someone yelled in between songs, like during his first tour for Rock in the Suburbs in like the early 2000s. Someone just yelled "Rock this bitch," which is means nothing, but Ben took that as like, oh, here's a moment where I can make up a funny song. So he makes up a funny song, playing, making up a song on the spot, making up lyrics on the spot, where he sings lyrics to this made up song called "Rock This Bitch," and it became like a trend to, at every show, someone would yell that phrase, and that would be Ben's moment to start and making up an improv song in different keys, different styles. It could be a minor key and a major key. And a lot of times he'll make up lyrics that have to go with maybe something that happened during the night of the concert or the specific city he's in or state. And not every show gets it, because sometimes it gets to the point where people yell it in between songs where he won't play it because the crowd's being almost like disrespectful. But they did it a couple times at our show, and eventually he just started making up the song. And a lot of the lyrics had to do with him talking about the bass player, Derek Wong, it being his last night on the tour with the band. And then like halfway through, he started, I believe, doing like a grunge, like Eddie Vedder impersonation with the vocals. But it was really funny. Like, it definitely got a good laugh out of us.
Yeah, very much in good taste. It was like that right balance of, I'm slightly making fun of you guys, but it's all for, it's all in fun.
Yeah. And then they ended with Zach and Sarah, which was one of our favorites. And yeah, I mean, it was a great show. I mean, Ben's voice was on point the whole time. Ben seemed to be in a good mood. They sounded tight. I mean, the harmonica player like sounded great on songs like Back to Anonymous with the solo. Bass was on point.
Yeah, the Paramount Theater always sounds great.
Yeah, the venue. I think the only time I've been to the Paramount was when I saw Glenn there, which again we're literally about to talk about him here in a second. But yeah, we had really good seats, which helped, and yeah, it was a great night.
Yeah, I saw Brian Wilson there with the Zombies previously, and I also saw one of Les Claypool's projects. It might have been Duo de Twang, which in hindsight seems a little weird for the Paramount compared to the some of the other acts you see there. But
yeah, well, Ben, I mean, his music sounds like, sometimes it can sound formal, but then the lyrics are definitely not.
you got a good point there.
So, but yeah, I had fun. I mean, yeah, your first time, you had fun, right?
Yeah, no, it was a great show. Glad I saw it. It was fun bringing Bryce and Connor along too. Definitely a success.
And it could be the last album that he tours on. He said that in the future he might just tour whenever he wants to and not make another album. He said it'll really depend. So it's nice we got to see him on like on maybe a final last formal tour. And then of course, like a week or two later, Ben Folds Fives reunites for a show for their manager. Like they play like a impromptu like 3-song set. So you literally miss Ben Folds 5 by like a week or two.
Which that is like pains funny. Me to know that. You don't have to remind me.
I know. I don't even know how many songs they did. I know they did Emmeline and they did Where Summer Be, I think.
Which are literally like two. Well, the Emmeline version with the band is not as good as that one live.
But you love you love that era, like their first album.
Well, that song in particular, that's the deep cut for me. I love that one.
Yeah,
and it doesn't get played much live, right? To my understanding.
Yeah,
or Emmeline.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, so Ben Folds was great. And then a couple days later, you got to see the Swell season in Washington, and then like a week later, I saw the Swell season in California, in San Francisco. So
yeah, so the timeline goes: you fly into town. 2 days later, we see Ben Folds live together at the Paramount, and then the next day we go to Oregon for a few days, and then as we drop you off at the airport on the way back home, I get dropped off at the concert. So it's really been packed. And when I saw Glenn, it was with my sister and her boyfriend, and it was
her sister. She's only
Our
your sister.
sister. Oh. When it's my story, it's my sister.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, that's right. Okay, she's only your sister in your story.
Yeah, you're not part of it.
Okay, yeah.
So, yeah. So we saw at some winery. I think it has like a fancy name or something.
It's like
I really
Chattanooga or
don't.
something.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds about right. And I mean, for an outdoor concert, it sounded pretty dang good. I'm not gonna lie. I don't normally like outdoor shows, and it's not even because like you have to bring your own chair and stuff. It's just they don't sound as good. I think that's just kind of a fact. I
Did
think
you
that's
bring your
pretty
own chair?
objective. Yeah, we brought some lawn chairs, which was definitely the move. Um, and yeah, that was the setting for my show. And the opener, which I believe we both had the same opener as you would expect, was what is his name? Eric something.
Harper.
Eric Harper. He did a very cool flamenco, almost like it was a flamenco type thing, but almost like he was going to do a singer songwriter. He told some stories in between.
But I wouldn't say all his music was flamenco. He had like different varieties. Like the first song was flamenco, but then he did like a song where he did sing. Like he had lyrics, like an original song where it was just more straightforward. It wasn't like a flamenco style, you know?
Yeah, that's where like the singer songwriter element comes in.
Then he had like a song that was like kind of bossa nova a little bit about coffee.
Yeah, cream and sugar. And yes, it's spelt sugar on the record, which
Yeah.
he had a cool story for. Apparently, he was hired with a fellow musician to play for 3 hours at a coffee stand or coffee shop, whatever. And they only had like 15 minutes of material or 30 minutes, and so they just had to make something up. So he starts improvising a song about cream and sugar while his bandmate is like rocking out on percussion, which I thought this guy was actually pretty funny. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, he told a lot of stories between the songs. He could have done a couple more and shortened the stories, but
Agreed.
there was enough variety that was good.
And I liked that it's so okay. It's cool with Tall Heights that they're a part of Ben's band and they play with them, but their music still sounds different than Ben's music. It's very different, even if their styles did blend well. Eric Harper is very different from the Swell season. So I always love when the bands, the acts have variety. I don't want to hear 2 or 3 acts in a row that all sound the same.
Yeah. And
general statement, not anyone in particular.
Yeah. And then to clarify for both shows, we had the same opener and then we had the same core band for the Swell season. If you don't know, Swell season is Glenn Hansard, who, he's in the Frames. And he's known for solo work. And then he's also probably most known for the movie he did once with Marketa Erglova, who is also in the film. And she's also the second half of the Swell season. And if you haven't seen once the film, go watch it. It's like a great film, great music, all like original songs that Glenn and Marketa wrote.
I only remember a couple scenes, to be honest.
But
I don't even know why he's in the movie or
he's the main star. They're both the main star.
But like there were musicians before, and then they just auditioned for the role where they he
had a friend who directed the film, who wrote the screenplay of like this kind of romantic. So it's kind of funny and it's romantic about these two people who kind of like fall for each other, but they both play music. So then they both start writing music together. And he asked like Glenn if he would contribute music. And then like his friend director was like, actually, I think he should be the main star. Wow. And then he also knew Marketa and neither of them were actors, but the director convinced them to join each other in the film. And yeah, and it's a well-acclaimed film. I mean, it's not a super popular film, but if you know it, most people like love it. It ended up having like a Broadway musical to it as well, and Falling Slowly, the biggest song from it, won a Grammy. So that's what the Swell season is known for. And they only have really done 2 albums, not including like this one soundtrack, even though a lot of those songs are on their first album. And then they both went and done like solo careers. and every now and then they will come together and tour, and that's what they did earlier this year, kind of to celebrate the anniversary of Once. But then they also started writing new songs, and they've released one new song since. And it sounds like maybe in the future they might release another album of new songs. Um, but I did just want to point out that the opening band, or not the opening band, the rest of their bandmates consists of actually the Swell Seasons bassist, Joseph Doyle. So if you know the Frames, you're probably familiar with him. Um, and then you had the drummer. His name was Piero Perielli. Again, I probably pronounced that wrong.
I think it's pronounced Neil Peart.
And then this was a nice treat. They had someone else playing cello, another cellist, and then someone playing, I think, the violin. And their names are hard to pronounce, so I'm not even going to attempt to. But the I guess Glenn and Marquetta thought the songs would sound great with some extra strings, and they did. So yeah, so that was their band, and it was the same both for my show and Tony's show. My show, really quick, I'll just say we saw them in San Francisco at the Masonic Theater. We've actually seen Glenn there once before. Not my favorite theater. The seats are kind of small, but even though we had pretty far away seats, kind of high up, it was still a decent view. And the sound was pretty decent too. So there's not much to complain about. But you've never seen Glenn before, right? I've seen him. He's actually the artist I've seen live the most. I first saw him open up for Eddie Vedder, in Seattle. And then, like many years ago, when Eddie Vedder toured on his Ukulele Songs album. And then I saw him with Mom and Dad and Tessa for Glenn's first solo album tour. And then I've seen him with Lindsay now. This is, I think, the fourth time. We've seen him 3 other times. 2 times with like a band, and then 1 time just him and a solo with a guitar. So he's the person I've seen live the most, hands down. But you've never seen him, right?
No, this is my first time seeing him live. I mean, I've definitely seen clips online, and I've never seen a bad clip of him. And that reflects my experience at the show.
So, and I know you're more familiar with like frame songs than you are with like Glenn solo or Swell Season, but
I do find some of the
right?
Yeah, I do. There is like a lot of Swell Season songs that I love. Just some of their work is a little slow for me sometimes. I mean, I love slow stuff too, don't get me wrong. But yeah, I was familiar with a lot of the songs, and of course, as you know, you had warned me they do Fitzcarraldo. Should we compare sets here, or?
Yeah, because they've been, unlike Ben, with his tour, they've been kind of changing it up. Like I said, they've been writing a lot of new music. So at our show, they played with every show they've been starting it off with the song Lies, which is from Once. And it's also on their first album. And I've always loved that song. Then they played a new song called The Answer Is Yes, which is the one they've released online months ago before the tour started. And that song's grown on me. That one is very sweet and sentimental. It's kind of a piano ballad, but it grew on me the more I've listened to it. And then from there, they kind of go around. They do a Glenn solo song. They do a couple Marquetta solo songs. But they played a lot of new songs. They played a new song. Besides The Answer Is Yes, they played a new one called Factory Street Bells. They did a new song called Pretty Stories. And then they did another new song called I Will Not Stand By. So they did 4 new songs at our show. I don't know if they played all those new ones at your show too.
Yeah, they did at least 3 new ones, maybe 4.
Pretty Stories one was good.
Which one was that? Because I know there was the one I remember what did you say, the Factory Street
Bells? Yeah,
I
That
remember
one,
that one.
he
I
said
remember the answers. Yes.
he wrote it about his son, Factory Street Bells, because he just had a kid like a year ago, I think, with his wife. And it that one, it sounds like I'll have to check it out because Glenn actually has a new solo album coming out like I think next month, which is kind of weird that like he announced that during like a Swell season tour. I'm wondering if he's going to tour on this new album maybe next year, but he's released 2 songs from the new album so far, and I'm not quite sure how I feel about it yet, but I have a feeling this Factory Street Bells might be on it. I know he released like the vinyl pre-order, so I think there is a track listing, so I'll have to look it up later, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's a solo song, especially because he wrote it about his kid.
I don't remember him telling me it's about his kid. Well, telling me
You like specifically.
I was one of the people he was telling. Okay.
And then they played. I'm sure that your show they played some other Swell season songs like "Leave," right?
Yeah. Okay. So here's the ones I can tell you from Swell season that I know for a fact they played. They played "Lies," "When Your Mind's Made Up,"
Which is one of the biggest songs from Once.
Right. The Moon, which he made a Tom Waits reference actually at the show. He had said, "Wow, the moon looks like a grapefruit," and then in a Tom Waits impression, "Grapefruit moon," sing that little bit there. So,
But it's cool because you again that only happened because you guys they played at an outdoor venue where you could see the moon, unlike our show.
That's true, actually. Yeah.
So and the moon, I know you probably know the original, but like that version they played like a longer, kind of a heavier version. Like there at one point, Glenn like really rocks out on the electric guitar. He's like doing like solos and like feedback and stuff.
Well, I don't remember him getting feedback.
Oh, maybe he
maybe
he went rock at our show then. I don't know because he actually played the moon at the second time Lindsay and I saw him live, but it was kind of just a straightforward version. But this version, it was like kind of heavy. I mean, the same tempo, but he just got a lot crazier with the guitar on this time around.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely was rocking out. Don't get me wrong. There were some songs that felt pretty heavy. He definitely didn't go for no feedback though, so that was cool about your show. But and real quick, just to kind of finish off, they did "Feeling the Pull," which is one of my favorites.
See, they didn't do that at our show, and I was a little disappointed because I've never seen that one live, and I do like that one. I haven't that album because that's from their second album. So yeah, I was a little disappointed we didn't get that one.
Of course, Fitzcarraldo and "Falling Slowly."
Yeah, which Fitzcarraldo is my favorite, probably Glenn song of all time. My favorite Frames song, my favorite Frames album. And the Swell Seasons version, I think they play it even better than the Frames version. Like Marquetta does like the electric guitar part on the piano. Sounds so good, but it still has like the energy of the studio Frames version. I love it. And then the string players that they had on stage too, like killed it.
Yeah, I mean, it was really good. I mean, I like the Frames version. I think the drums are a lot more exciting.
That's my least favorite part about the Frames version.
Get out of here.
I never loved the drums on their version.
But guess what though? We had some guests invited on stage to play guitar for that song. We did a little solo. No clue who the guy is. They said his name. I have already forgotten. Sorry, guest guy.
You said
I sent it to you.
But you also texted me too, like he talked about his teacher at one point.
Yes, his headmaster, I believe, is the Irish term for it. That was a half joke. Yeah, so he actually said he was going to be at the show. So Glenn called him out, and they were able to find him. He was no capping, and so they brought him on stage, and he had told a story, and the headmaster said he was a bit inaccurate with it. But it was cool to see. It was a heartwarming story in a way. And he came up and Glenn started like singing some song that everyone was supposed to know, but Tessa and I did not know. Something about a blue moon. I don't know, but everyone knew the words to it except us. And so he was singing that and having the headmaster sing part of it too. So it was a really fun experience.
Yeah. For our show, for Fitzcarraldo and If You Want Me, our guest musician was Eric Harper, the opener. He came out and actually played.
Oh yeah, he also
Oh, okay,
came up
yeah.
as well for one song.
Now our show also had a special guest that wasn't the same person at your show. Glenn has a close friend of his that lives in San Francisco, and they had like coffee or breakfast the morning of the show, and his friend like recited to him like a poem that he wrote, and Glenn said like he was so moved by it that during Low Rising, they started playing the Van Morrison song Into the Mystic, which might have been the one that you just mentioned, not knowing, because that's like a big Van Morrison song. And Glenn always covers Van Morrison, especially that song. Um, and like halfway into this cover, which was already in part of the performance of Low Rising, Glenn brings his friend on stage and the band's still playing the music, but they kind of like they're playing a little quieter. And the friend recites his whole poem. So it's kind of like a spoken word song where like music's in the background and then the guy's like reciting the poem. And then they go back into the Mystic and finish the rest of the song. So that was
It was
our
not
special
this
guest.
one, but maybe they did play the song, but that was not the one where
Oh, okay.
they were doing that thing. But that is a pretty cool. That would have been cool to see though.
And then at our show, someone asked him like during the part where he like had his electric guitar, someone like shouted like, "Is that I don't know what guitar they said, but I think they said like, oh, is that what's the one that starts with a G?
A Gibson?
Yeah."
Bruh.
And then Glenn was like, "No, this is the other one that starts with a G. Like a Gretsch."
Gil?
No.
Oh, Gretsch.
Yeah.
That makes more sense than a
And
Gil.
then Glenn is like, "Yeah, I love this thing." He's like, "I kind of got it so I can have that Velvet Underground sound."
Really?
And then he started to cover one of their songs called Venus in Furs, which I know the title of that song, but I know very little about the Velvet Underground, so I didn't know it. But some people in the crowd got very excited. So that was like a very impromptu like cover. Like he only did part of the song. But
See, when Glenn was talking about his headmaster, he was talking about connecting with him with Bob Dylan. So it's cool to see. I always love seeing artists who have heroes and they I don't want to say pay respect to them, but you know, they acknowledge them and they show their love for them. And I know that's always cool to hear because you know, as a musician, you know, those moments of inspiration that you get from watching other musicians and hearing them is you know, it's hard to compare that to things.
yeah, and then after Falling Slowly at our show, which of course is like the one people are waiting for the most, and it was fantastic. And I've seen Glenn do it by himself, like with his normal backing band, and then I've seen him cover it with Eddie Vedder. And then not you and I, but Tessa and I went with Dad to see Marquetta in Seattle one year when she was touring off her first solo album, and she played it by herself with her backing band, which did consist of the two guys from the Frames. But I've never seen them play it together, so that was cool to finally.
You
see
saw the
them
most
play
authentic
together.
version.
Yeah, but then after that, Marquetta actually brought on her sister, and I guess it was their dad's birthday, so they covered a song in their native language.
Wow.
And that was cool. And actually, speaking about birthdays,
you share a birthday with Billy Joel.
Yeah.
Wait, sorry if I wasn't supposed to give out that information. You can cut this later.
No, but well, I mean that is true. I do share a birthday with Billy Joel, and I'm one day off from sharing one with Bono. But
I share one with I think Brendan Fraser.
Oh, that's pretty good.
It's not too bad.
I think you share one.
No, I'm completely wrong. I'm sorry.
I think you share one with Ryan Adams, which that I'll probably cut from.
No.
Yeah.
No, there's no way. Is he really a Scorpio? November 5th.
Oh, yeah. Okay, my bad. But so speaking of birthdays, we got really off topic.
Matthew McConaughey, that's who it is.
Okay.
And Ralph Macchio?
The Karate Kid?
Yeah.
Okay.
And whoever, why do I recognize Sean Combs? Okay, I'm going to stop.
Speaking of birthdays, though, it was Eric Harper's birthday. The opener.
Oh, okay.
And he said that like during his set. He just mentioned it kind of like briefly. And then someone in the crowd started singing happy birthday. So then the whole crowd sang happy birthday to him.
Oh, that sounds
Um,
very wholesome, very
and
sweet.
then our show ended, I think, the way they've been ending a lot of shows where um, Glenn and Marquetta will busk and they'll play Say It To Me Now, which is, if you know the original song, it's originally actually a Frame song off of Fitzcarraldo, but then it was later reused in the Once movie soundtrack, and that's where it kind of gained its popularity. So they went totally no microphones, and they played that, and then they did the same thing with Gold. But for our show, it was a little disappointing because like some point during the show, some people in the crowds near the front mentioned that they like came all the way from Brazil to see them, which is cool. But at the same time, like they shouted it during a song, like or like in between a song. I don't know, like to make it seem like they're more special than the rest of us. But it got Glenn's attention because then when they played Say It To Me Now, they actually brought those people on stage. Like literally,
What?
they were like, they made them like climb the stage because like there's no easy access from the front where the people are sitting to get to the stage. So yeah, they just kind of like hopped and crawled on stage, and then they sang "Say It To Me Now" with Glenn and Marquetta. I think it would have been
That's
better. It's
pretty
cool, but
awesome.
I wish it was just Glenn and them because they immediately when Glenn, and this is the thing you'll understand as a musician. They're playing this acoustic song, which normally, at least the Once version, there's no drums. It's just acoustic guitar and vocals. Right as Glenn starts like playing and singing it, one of the guys that was right on stage starts clapping, like
Are,
getting the audience to clap along.
are you joking me right now?
And then they
This
started
is
clapping
not a
on,
clapping song.
and then they started clapping on the 1 and the 3,
bro,
which is what you're
where's
not
Harry
supposed to
Connick Jr.
do.
right now?
Oh,
Flip it
like
around.
that one time where he like
He
he
added an
knew the
extra
crowd,
beat.
yeah, because he knew they were clapping on the wrong beats, and yeah, so that was kind of annoying. And then, kind of in the same way too, when they played Gold, Marquetta invited someone on stage, someone who actually sang, who played Marquetta in the Broadway production of
Oh,
Once the movie. But so then Glenn it became like a duet between her and Glenn, which is cool. But I kind of wanted to hear Marquetta sing on Gold. So a little mixed emotions at the end of the concert, at least for our show, like because those are like some of the ones we were looking forward to the most. Because like Gold is Lindsay's favorite, and Say It To Me Now is one of my favorites. But it felt like the crowd was kind of like, I don't know, almost too much crowd interaction for my liking. You know?
yeah. So okay. So for a while, I was somebody that like part of why I don't love concerts sometimes is like I don't want to hear the audience sing every song,
And
you
I
know?
totally get that too. Yeah.
But you know, as I've been going to other shows of different genres, like I was going to metal shows with Ishan for a while, and then even the shows that I perform at, they're different energies. It's more so about enjoying the vibe, enjoying just all the fat bass you hear, you know? So I understand that not everyone that goes to a concert is going to hear their favorite songs live. They're going for the vibe and to get drunk. But if it makes you feel any better, so when Glenn did his busking moment, he came down from the stage and ran out into the crowd. And because you had told me that it's a Glenn move to do that, I was actually able, and I was like, Tessa, we got to go. And we ran up and we got we got pretty close to him, honestly. There was some people in front, so we couldn't quite see him too well, but I tried to get Tessa a good spot in there, and we were able to hear him. That was the important part. But we did have a vibe killer. I try not to throw this term out all the time just because people throw it everywhere, but there was a Karen behind Tessa and I was this lady who, when Glenn's doing this passionate song, I don't say a once in a lifetime moment, but like a huge moment at a concert. She's like, of course, all the tall people run up front. They should make the tall people stand back. I was like, what are you doing? And also, I didn't realize until you had mentioned it. I thought Glenn did like a shortened version of "Say It to Me Now," which was like fine, but I didn't realize the Swell season version is significantly shorter.
Yeah, like it's yeah, like some of the words are different too. Like yeah, it's like just a
Oh, okay.
different version of the song. Yeah.
And Marquetta didn't join him. I don't think.
Yeah, I noticed during some of the tour, some of the videos they posted, there were some times when they did that song together, and then some it was just Glenn. Their shows definitely had a lot of spontaneity. Okay, this is the
Spontaneity
part.
to it.
This is the part of the podcast where Rico forgets English. And Rico starts talking in third person as well. Yeah, like there's a lot of moments, and even just reading the set list for different shows, which the reason I don't know your set list because no one posted it online, but like, yeah, they would do different covers for different shows, different songs. They changed the order of some of the songs, but I thought it all sounded great. Marquetta sounded fantastic. Glenn sounded fantastic. Like the band sounded tight, but loose enough to where they were able to do kind of impromptu covers and songs. Um, I noticed because they ended their tour too after the night after our show in LA. And long story short, a couple years ago, Sean Penn did a movie and Eddie Vedder and did the soundtrack with Glenn. Like most of the songs are either a Glenn song, an Eddie Vedder song, or a song they did together. And there's a one song where it's both of them and Eddie Vedder's daughter who sings on it too.
What?
Because she's like the age of like Chris Cornell's daughter, who also like does music, I think, like
Yeah,
plays and
Tony.
sings. Yeah. And she was the Eddie Vedder's daughter was there at the LA show, and she joined the Glenn on stage to do that song with none other than Chad Smith on drums because Chad Smith was there,
He's
and
the man.
Chad Smith was the drummer for Eddie Vedder's most recent solo tour with his album Earthlings, and it was him. And Glenn was there too. Glenn was like the guitarist for Eddie Vedder's tour, along with Josh Klinghoffer, and then Chad Smith on drums. And then I guess at that show too, they did a cover of an AC/DC song
Oh my
with
god,
Chad
I do
Smith.
not want to hear like 60-year-old Vedder sing that.
No, no, at the Swell season concert. Not
Oh, at the Swell. Wait, I also don't want to hear that either. I don't want to hear anyone sing AC/DC.
I don't even know the song. Like they did like a deep cut. They did one called "Give Me a Bullet."
A bullet?
Yeah,
I thought they were gonna say "Giving a dog a bone," and I was like, "Oh, okay, I think I know that
but
one."
they also played Revelate too, which I'm jealous
Ah,
of. Yeah, I love Revel.
I think I would remember it if I saw that one.
Yeah.
Uh,
But yeah, like I loved it.
I will say to interrupt really fast. I do really, and this is something that I'm appreciating and implementing as I'm performing more. Gigging's still new to me. Is I do really appreciate and love, the spontaneous moments. It makes each show feel like it's something special. Whether that's just different songs or like a different set list or different versions of songs. And it's cool too. I feel like it keeps the band kind of excited, keeps it fresh for them, and you can tell when a band's like feeling a song, because when you play the same song over and over, it begins to feel kind of stale for the performer. I mean, at least in my experience. So I don't know. That was my rant. So please continue.
No, I mean that I think that sums it up well.
And the Ben show also felt pretty natural. It didn't feel too rigid.
No, I think we each had a great Swell season show, and then we both had the exact same experience at the Ben show. And yeah, I mean it's always great to see live music. I've already seen the Swell season concert was like my fourth one of the year because we went and saw Crowded House earlier this year, and then we saw Tears for Fears with Culver Kids opening for them, which was great. And
kind of interesting combo.
Next month, we're seeing Sting.
I'm jealous. I don't know his solo work too much, but I dig the Police a lot.
I say you love the Police, so
Police don't get that much love. I feel like.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll give me a Police album one of these days for album.
Ooh,
Which
don't give me ideas.
That's a perfect segue because we are going to get back to our album for album series this month. They might be the next episodes. We're not sure yet. You might also notice our schedule for posting these episodes might start to change. I have a new job. And I know your days off might be changing too. So you might notice these episodes being posted on another day of the week, maybe like Thursdays or Fridays. So just a warning for the few people who listen regularly. But we will be doing album for album this month. And we already know the albums we're giving each other, so we'll announce them now. For this month, I have given Tony Death Cabs for Cuties album called Narrow Stairs. And then this is where you give me yours.
and the album I am giving you for this month's album for album is Sly and the Family Stones, Fresh.
Nice.
There's no exclamation mark. I said it as if there's an exclamation mark after it, but it's just fresh.
Yeah.
Like summer days and summer nights has like 3 exclamation marks.
Yes, and I only technically know one song from that album, so I'm excited.
And I think I know which one it is. Well, actually, no, I do know which one it is now.
Yes, and I know you know a couple from the Death Cab album, but I know that I knew that going into it. I still wanted to give you the full album though.
But I'm excited though because Death Cab is a band where I only know like 3 songs total. But I always hear good things about them. They seem cool. I guess I don't really have that much to add, but I'm excited for it, and I'm really excited to hear what you think about Fresh. It'll be our first funk album on the pod.
There you go. So those will probably be the next 2 episodes that you will hear from us. But we are glad to be back, and hopefully we will continue our normal schedule from here on out. But until then, until the next episode, we hope you take care, and you'll be hearing from us soon. Bye-bye.